Tom here. I'm laying on my workbench because I don't feel like moving my camera twice. But today I wanted to show you how you can make a stained glass three-dimensional bird. Looks like this. This is probably not going to be your first project. If you've never done stained glass before, you might end up doing something like I did in one of my first projects. No big deal, yeah? And then as you get better, you might do something like this. Kind of cool. And you might do something like this. It's a little simpler. You could even get a little creative and make yourself a picture frame. But as I said, a three-dimensional bird is probably about a mid-level. But I'm going to show you how you can do this. It's pretty easy, actually. If you have some patience and time, you might want to give it a shot. So in order to make our bird, we're going to need some glass. I bought this at a garage sale for 15 bucks. But you know, I didn't have any red. So what I did is I picked this up at Hobby Lobby. Some cardinal red. We're going to use that for our bird. You're going to need some solder, some copper foil, some solid wire for the feet. We're going to use this for the edging. You might want to find a piece of wood to mount your bird on, or you could hang them from a chain in a window. That's fine too. I found this driftwood. Thought it'd be perfect to put a bird on. Black patina. And you need a pattern, obviously. So what I did is I went on Google and I found stained glass cardinals, and I printed these off from Microsoft Word, where I resized it, took away the color. All we really need is the outline of each piece. So this is going to be for the body. That'll be for our wings, of course, and the tail fin. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to need to do, since we're going to use this body, here's what we're going to use. So we need to complete the outline. So take your phone, snap a picture. And the reason I do this is so I can remember where all the pieces go. You're going to need two types of scissors. These are a regular pair of scissors. Now these are a special pair of scissors. It has a slot in it because when you put all the pieces together, you don't want the assembled project to be larger than the pattern. So what this does is this cuts out in between a small space, about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch. And then that'll allow for your solder joints. So your completed product will be the exact same size as your pattern. So what we can do is cut out with regular scissors from the outside. And then we'll use our special scissors on the inside. What I did was put next to the number, I put a letter, W for white and B for black. So I'm going to cut this piece out of black, these out of white, and everything else out of red. Now that we have all our pattern pieces cut out, I'm going to show you how we can cut out each of the feathers from the glass very quickly. see a score line. So with our running pliers, so we're going to run our glass cutter along the gap in the paper. So that's how you cut out your glass, and we'll repeat the same process on the other wing. So we have all the glass cut for our wings and for our tail. Now I'm going to show you how to cut the remaining pieces. So we have all of our pieces cut, the wings, the body, the tail. One thing we still have to do is make the edges extremely neat. You can see a lot of jagged edges. Well, how do we clean that up? Well, if you're going to take this hobby even semi-seriously, you're going to have to get yourself one of these bad boys. So this is a grinder. What happens is when I turn this on, that wheel is a diamond wheel, and I'm going to be able to grind the edges of all my glass to perfection. Let me show you how to set it up. Alright, first thing I do, take off the cover and fill this reservoir with water. You want to fill it up to the height about there. So you want to soak your sponge and insert it in here like so. So what happens is this will sit on top and the sponge will keep your diamond wheel wet. So the end of the sponge stays in the water. See, the edge is actually it puts a rough edge on there, so you won't cut yourself now when you put your finger on it. The other thing I will say, even if you have a perfect cut, you still want to grind it. It needs to be rough so that when you apply, we're going to be putting on here some copper foil edging, and it'll give it something good to stick to. So once you have all your pieces cut out, put them together and then take a close look in between each piece. They should be fairly tight. Now's the time to make any adjustments. Go back to the grinder if you need to. So our next step is going to be to apply copper foil edging to every piece. But before we do that, we want to take off our paper, and then we want to clean this thoroughly with a rag or something. Probably should get a rag. And once it's dried off, we're going to replace the number. So this is a number 7. So now that we have all our pieces cut out and cleaned and labeled, the one thing I checked for was any joints that were gapping. So this is the time to make any minor adjustments before we apply our copper foil. So our next step is to apply copper foil to each of our glass pieces. This will allow us to solder them together. There's different types of copper foil. One of them is a copper-backed foil, and another one is a black-backed. What's the difference? Here's a sample piece of glass that has both copper-back and black-back. It's really just a preference. I prefer the black because when it's folded over, you don't tend to see the reflection of the copper. So it's whatever you want to do, really. Your choice. Now, you can apply the copper foil by hand, which will take quite a bit of time, and has a tendency to vary. It's hard to get it exactly right. It takes more time. Or you can use one of these. This is a copper foiling machine. Let me show you how to use it. Now, when I got my tape dispenser, I ended up mounting it on this block of wood. Keeps it a lot more stable. I use two types of tape. The one on the left is 3/16 wide, and the one on the right is 7/32. Whichever one you use has to go on the right side, and then you have to install the corresponding wheels. In fact, these here are 7/32. Here's other optional wheels, depending on the size tape. Now our final goal for every piece of glass is to look similar to this. I have the tape applied on the edge, and it's about an even space on both sides. The overlap is about the same. When you put the glass up against, you'll see here a little metal rod, and this metal rod can move either in or out, and it's adjusted with this knob here. You want to adjust it so that your piece of glass is perfectly centered on the tape. As much overhang on the left as it is on the right. Once you have it adjusted, make sure your knob is tight, and then you can begin. Press down. Now once you get it to the point where you started, simply pull it away and then clip it off. So now you end up with something that looks like this. So what I first do is I press it down with my fingers. And now on the left here, you use this to press this down firmly in place by sliding it and pressing down. So what this does is the plastic pinches both sides of the tape, and as you press down, it presses the tape against the glass. And you do this all the way around the piece of glass. Now the smaller pieces are a little bit more challenging. You may want to use either this, or you may want to do it by hand. We'll give this a try. Now on the smaller pieces, it's going to be a little difficult to fit in there, so you can do these by hand. Now you can buy one of these tools, they sell these, or you could use a piece of wood or a popsicle stick. But the idea here is to press down the edging, rub it back and forth, always pulling in towards the center of the glass. If you push it out, you risk tearing it or pulling it away. So I have here my soldering board, which, by the way, I repurposed. Used to be an old kitchen cutting board. Now what we're going to do is we're going to solder the bird flat, but the wings and the tail fin, those we're going to have a curve to, because what bird has completely flat wings? So this is going to be a little bit trickier. I'll show you how we're going to do that. But the first thing I want to do is show you how to solder the flat bird. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to apply a flux onto the copper foil, so the solder, it would allow the solder to flow and to stick. So I like to use this gel flux. It doesn't run so much. So the goal here for our tail fin is to have a curved effect. So in other words, if these were all the pieces, I want to have a nice curve. Now this may sound weird, but what I did is I took a bucket On the bucket I put a piece of double stick tape. I chose the bucket because this is about the curve that I want to use. Now you may come up with a better idea to curve your wings, but what I did was I cut a couple of pieces of wire and I bent them in the shape that I wanted the wing to be, and I mounted them in this vise, and then I wrapped it with double stick tape. So I have a nice curve here. I think that'll work out. The only thing you have to be careful with is your straight piece, because this piece doesn't curve. But I think we could fudge it with some solder. Now one of the things we're going to have to do with this wing, it's going to have to be reinforced, because this little joint here is not going to support the weight of the wings. So we're going to do this in a couple of ways. The first way I want to do it is to take a 14 gauge wire and we're going to solder it along this edge. We're going to hide it by the solder so you won't actually see it. Now you're going to want to make sure you take your time soldering. Now once all your soldering is complete and you've reinforced all the edges, then we're going to have to wash all the flux off of this. But before we do that, let me say a few things about what I used for this edging. There's two types that I used. Rounded on one side and then flat on one side. I used the rounded on the bird body because I thought that it was more decorative, and then I used the flat one on the wings. Let's go give the bird a bath. Now, for washing our bird, you can buy this flux remover, or you could probably even use Dawn. So now our bird is complete, but there's one more step I like to do. I don't care for this silver color, so what I'm going to use is black patina. When you brush this on the lead and the solder, it turns it black. Chemical reaction takes place turning it black. So let's do that. So, this is how I made my stained glass three-dimensional bird. Now, if you've never worked with stained glass before, this shouldn't be your first project. However, in upcoming videos, I will show you some basic stained glass techniques. And if you want to be notified when those come out, please subscribe to Alley Picked. Thanks for watching.